With the midterms just 77 days away, state leaders are now sounding the alarm about the threat of cyber attacks. The warnings are coming after the Trump administration downsized the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, with DOJ slashing its budget and its staff. Cybersecurity experts are warning Iran is now eyeing new cyber targets. They tell The Atlantic, as Trump looks to squeeze the Iranian economy, Iran may respond by going after U.S. infrastructure. And some Democrats worry the administration isn't paying enough attention to this. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon telling The Atlantic CISA is mostly writing off the 2026 election cycle when it comes to direct services for the states. Michael Feinberg, Mary McCord back with us. Michael, the irony here is, for our viewers' sake, it was actually Trump and his first administration who put more emphasis on CISA, but then it was Kristi Noem who thinned it out. Now we're seeing her successor, Markwayne Mullin, trying to amp it back up. Help us understand what CISA is actually supposed to be doing and what the gaps that have been left here could mean for our security.
This is a very crude description of it, but CISA is supposed to, in idealized form, function somewhat as a domestic defensive player similar to the NSA or Cybercom are in offensive capabilities. They are supposed to harden the target of our electoral system, our cyber networks, and our critical infrastructure. And Trump, you're right, did establish the office. But in the aftermath of the 2020 election, which he lost, the head of CISA came out and said there was no foreign interference or manipulation of the election and that it was totally secure. So Trump, as he is wont to do, went high and right, and upon assuming office in 2025, issued an executive order demanding that his former head of CISA be placed under investigation. So even if CISA did have a fully staffed roster, which it does not, and fully funded resources, which it does not, and an overarching head department, DHS, which cared about its mission, which it does not, there would still be a really powerful disincentive for its employees to tell the truth about what was going on, because Trump's already shown, regardless of the truth, if he doesn't like what they're saying, he's going to try and put them under criminal investigation. We're weaker and more vulnerable on the cybersecurity front, certainly than we've ever been in my lifetime.
Is there enough time between now and the election to strengthen CISA to make sure that we can prevent against any Iranian nefarious activity?
Not a chance. Even if today we hired all the people we needed to staff the agency, top secret background checks take usually 6 months to a year alone. So there's no way, no matter how much money you throw at the problem right now, that you could translate that into human capital in time for November.
Mary, VoteBeat.org reported on an election security call hosted by CISA for state officials on Monday. They say, quote, CISA leaders provided what one participant characterized as a generic CYA, cover your expletive, briefing that offered state officials few assurances that the federal government would help thwart threats this November. What more can states do to push the federal government for resources here?
Well, the states, frankly, are looking to other resources, right? They're looking to private companies that specialize in cybersecurity to do the briefings for them, to pressure test against their systems, to make sure that they're hardened against intrusions. They're relying on their own information sharing networks about disinformation being promulgated by foreign adversaries. And a lot of what CISA has done in the past, which is just not doing this year, are those things, giving a real in-depth intelligence briefings about what foreign adversaries are doing, which is really not so much trying to change election results, because our disparate system of counties running their own election, their actual election and voting and tabulating machines means that they're not interlinked on the internet, and so they're not really susceptible to being hacked into having votes changed on a massive scale. But what CISA has helped with is to protect against the kind of things that foreign adversaries do, and frankly, at this point, domestic adversaries as well, that undermine public confidence in elections, right? And so they help them steal against what can they say in response to that. They do help pressure test their own systems. And as Michael is saying, even if they could hire up people fast enough for this election, there wouldn't be enough time to rebuild the trust that has been so badly damaged in these last years. This administration is still relitigating the 2020 election. They have not focused on this election. And we haven't even talked about other vulnerabilities that CISA normally protects against, hacking into other critical infrastructure, water systems, electrical systems, those types of things. And that's where we have a foreign adversary right now, Iran, who has the capability to do those things, has been doing those things, and CISA has just not provided the support that they should be providing.
Michael, I think it's an important point to hammer that Iran, other nefarious actors may not have the capability to hack into our voting machines because they're decentralized, but they may have the ability to put their thumb on the scale in other ways. Describe for our viewers what that means.
Yeah, so the biggest thing they could do is manipulate social media sites to promote false narratives, discourage people from going to polling places, encourage skepticism of the actual results. A lot of the stuff that we saw, for example, Russia do in the run-up to the 2016 election. Now, the difference between then and now is that time period, the social media companies really took content moderation seriously. And I'm not talking about censorship. That's not what they were doing. But they were actively trying to figure out whether posts were coming from foreign nations or from individuals associated with foreign intelligence services. Now, because conservative politicians tended to repost those memes in those tweets because they were generally supportive of Trump, the MAGA movement, both in Congress and through a series of nonprofits and law firms, basically dissuaded them from doing that by burying the tech companies in subpoenas, document requests, hearings where they were berated in public, and simultaneously suing out of existence a lot of the nonprofit groups that were doing this. So even if CISA was able to take action against foreign actors trying to influence our electoral process, they used to be buttressed by an entire ecosystem within civil society and at the tech companies themselves. There has been a concerted effort over the past 8 years to destroy that ecosystem, and it worked.
And we could definitely do a deep dive on that, and we will, we promise. Mary McCord, Michael Feinberg, thank you both.